Alright guys, got some exciting news. Jujutsu Kaisen Phantom Parade will be launching globally on 7th of November, so that's only about 3 weeks away from now. Obviously, this is great news. We'll be able to play the game a lot sooner. Originally, I thought it would be only launching in December this year because I think I read that on the news somewhere. But it seems like they brought the game release date a whole month earlier, so that's very, very nice. But at the same time, I think it may also mean we may not be able to reach the pre-registration milestone for 10 minutes anymore. So slightly annoyed that we won't be able to get this SSR guaranteed gacha ticket. But I think the game developers also realize this and they have actually released a different event in order to compensate for this. And that's going to be this one, which is the Phantom Parade early gacha. And this is something that you really want to do every single day from now on. I'm going to talk all about this event in this video. I will also be giving you guys a tier list so you know what exactly you want to aim for during this event as well. Now, what exactly is this event and why do you want to play it? It's basically a gacha simulation, so you have probability of getting different things. But the nice thing about this is that you are actually able to carry over what you get into the game. Now you can only carry over one copy from each category, so only one character, one recollection, and one item, etc. But it's still very nice because basically it helps out. It's almost like starting out the reroll process early because now you already have a choice of different cards or characters that you can potentially get on day one when the game actually launches. And then not only that will help you to kind of customize the direction you want your account to go in, it would also make your actual reroll process later on easier because now you have one less, let's say, SSR character with recollection to go after. So that's definitely very, very nice, and that's kind of why you really want to do this ahead of the game. Now, you also want to do this every single day because every single day you get some attempts or some events or tasks that you need to do in order to get extra gacha attempts. So just by logging onto the page every single day, you get one extra gacha attempt, and then by completing different tasks, you can get more attempts as well. A lot of those tasks are very, very easy. There's like participate in like another mini game. There's like follow their official account or like view their promotion video, etc. So just do this every single day, and you will be able to, save up loads of stack up loads of chances to spin on the gacha, and then hopefully increase your likelihood of actually getting something you really want on day one in when you actually start out in the game. Now, in terms of the things you can get, you can see you can get the characters, the recollection, and the cubes. They split out the probabilities here in terms of SSR and SR, but when you actually go into the backpack, they kind of merge them together. So for example here, recollection, I'll have both the SSR and also the SR, but I can only choose one out of the two. So even though they're different rarity, I can only choose one. Now, if you have never played this game before and you have trouble telling what's an SSR and what's SR, you tell them by the border of this card or this logo. If it's surrounded by a yellow border, that basically means it's SR. If it's surrounded by a multicolored rainbow border, it's an SSR. Now, vast majority of time, you want to go for SSR rather than SR. However, for this scenario, I actually picked this SR recollection rather than SR, which I will explain later on why I personally have done this for my account. But vast majority of time, you want to prioritize those with like a rainbow multicolor border. Okay. Now, in terms of the cubes, you can get up to 1,000 cubes, which is like the in-game currency that you actually allow you to summon in-game, etc. Obviously, the higher amount, the better. In terms of the characters and actual recollection, I created this tier list to help you guys. Now, one thing you have to bear in mind is that this is a tier list not in terms of how useful the characters are, but more in terms of what you should be aiming for doing this pre-gacha. Now, if you actually want to see a tier list of the best character in the game, I created a beginner's guide a couple weeks ago. I'll post a link in the description below, and you can go and watch that video to understand a bit more about certain characters, etc. But basically, there's a massive distinction because in that video, I actually said a lot of the SR characters are actually better than the SSRs. However, from like a reroll point of view, and also from like this event point of view, if you're lucky enough to get an SSR character, you'll be a fool to not take them because it's so much easier for you to actually then and re-roll for an SR character rather than re-rolling for an SSR. So if you are actually lucky enough to get an SSR, then just take it. Vast majority of the time, there are a few exceptions which I'll talk about, but vast majority of the time, if you have an SSR, then just take it, right? If you're fortunate enough and lucky enough, then just give whatever this game has already blessed you with, and just take it. If you really need those SR ones later down the road, just reroll in the actual game account. It's really easy to reroll for SR, so just take any SSR you can for now. Now, in terms of the characters and the recollections, I obviously split them out into two halves because you can only take one out of each category. For all of them, I have basically S tier, A tier, B tier. B tier, vast majority of time will be those really good SR cards or characters that are very nice in the game. But like I said, if you have the chance to take an SSR, then go for the SSR. Now, for the characters, I'm gonna start off with characters first. There are two characters who are miles ahead of everyone else, and that's going to be Gojo and Nobara. And those are really what you are ideally trying to go for if you actually have a choice between multiple SSR characters. Now, Gojo is by far the best one. This is the character that if you do not get the hit, you 100% have to reroll for when the game actually launches. So, guaranteed, you definitely want to have Gojo on your team. Now, for Nobara, close second to Gojo, not as good, mainly because of the fact that she lacks the damage immunity from Gojo, etc. So she is not going to be as versatile as what Gojo is able to do. But purely from damage point of view, she is a very good glass cannon and miles ahead of everyone else. And then in terms of the A tier, basically I have all of the other SSR characters. Like I said, you will be a fool not to take them into a game if you do happen to get one of them. So just take them for granted if you do happen to have them. Um, all right, now let's move on to the recollection. Once again, I have the S tier, A tier, and B tier. Similar to the characters, I would almost argue you can put all of the other SSR recollection, which I do not have here, into the A tier. There are too many of them, which is why I can't be bothered to actually put them all out and list them all out. But also, I do want to give a special shout out to this SR card, which I'll talk later about why it's so good as well. Now, starting off at the S tier for the recollections, if I really have to rank them amongst this tier, I would say these two cards are a bit better than the third one, and then followed by the fourth and fifth one, who are kind of like the bottom of this tier. The reason is these two cards provide a bit more long-term endgame value, whereas these three cards are kind of more for early game, like damage, but you actually get a free card with recollection in the game, which are actually going to be better than those three. So that's kind of why I feel like the first two provides a bit more value from long-term perspective. But the other three here on this tier are also good. This card is slightly better than this two, mainly because if you actually happen to have a dupe on this card becomes really good and also gives some extra edge as well. So that's kind of why it's a good idea to have this card if you have to choose between those three. But like I said, all three, now any of those five, to be honest, it's going to be a very good choice if you happen to be lucky enough to get one of them. If you want a more detailed explanation about what each of those cards do, by the way, once again, check out my beginner guide where I talk about all of them in a lot more detail and why I value those two more for kind of like the long-term end game perspective and those more for the early game. So that's all the S tier in terms of recollections. In terms of the A tier for recollection, like I said, you can carry over any of the other SSRs, but the problem with recollections in this game is that every time when there's a new event, then they tend to give you a free SSR recollection card at the same time, and they give you multiple copies and dupes for that as well. So it's very easy to actually max them out and dupe it out, and that basically means for recollections, unlike the characters, which I don't think they ever give you any free characters or any free SSR character, but for recollection, because they give you free SSRs all the time, it's very easy for them to be power crap, especially if you do not get multiple copies of something. And that's kind of why, if you actually think about it this way, yes, you can actually carry over some SSR recollection because they're really rare. But eventually, they would just be sitting in your backpack and never be played because they would just be power crap by all the free ones you will be getting in the game anyway. So that's kind of why I almost want to say, right, in terms of like a really rare SSR, is it actually more useful for you to just carry over an SR, which we'll be using all the time? And that's kind of why I put this SR card in the A tier for that purpose, and that's also the reason why I purposely chose this SR card ahead of this SSR card, because I just feel like it's a bit more useful for me personally to actually have an SR card which I can use rather than a really rare SSR which I would never ever use. So that's gonna be my judgment on this. But like I said, if you just want to go for like purely rarity collection point of view, then there's no harm in picking an SSR either. But I just didn't list them all out in my tier list. Now, this card, why is it really good? Because this is a really good support card that will allow you to increase the damage output for your main DPS. And out of all of the cards which give support values in this game, normally what I tend to find myself playing is actually I play 3 support character and 1 DPS, and therefore that basically means I need 3 support recollections and 1 damage recollection for my DPS character. And it turns out in this game, there are not actually that many support recollection. A lot of the recollection are actually more for damage based, increase your damage output, which are useless on your support character. And this is one of the few support recollection, which is actually really good as well. And also on top of that, even though this is SR card, so very likely you'll be able to get this when you actually play the game anyway. When this card actually get a dupe, it gives a massive edge as well because it increases your special gauge at the same time. So that's also going to be very nice. So that's kind of why I do feel like this card is very good, even though it's only an SR, and I would almost place it ahead of loads of other SSR recollections. And that's kind of why this card is in the A tier. Now, for the B tier, those are the other cards that I think they are also very good, but the reason why they are in B tier rather than A tier is vast majority of the time they actually have like multiple copies of the card which does similar kind of thing. So for example, the first 2 cards in this B tier, they basically increase your damage output by a huge amount for 1 single turn. And because they are SR and they do the same purpose, as long as you can get one of them, it kind of works already. So there's no need for you to really go really hard to try to aim for those cards. And similarly for the last 2 cards, they do the exact same thing. So you only need to get one of them when you actually start out in your game. So even though they're good, if you only need to get one out of those 2, it's very likely you'll be getting them just through randomly summoning throughout your game anyway. So there's no need to particularly aim for them. And then this card I also listed out, which is kind of nice to have. Isn't somewhat similar to the first 2 cards here in terms of that it also increases damage output, but this is for I think 2 turns or 3 turns rather than for 1 turn, which is slightly nicer than, well actually I mean it depends. I think those 2 cards increase the damage by like 50 or 60% for 1 turn, where this increased by like 20 or 30%, 20 or 30% for 2 or 3 turns. So slightly different purpose, but it's very, it can be useful in certain scenarios. The other thing for this card is also that if you happen to get dupe, the additional benefit from dupe kind of give like an extra support effect as well. So that's also very nice.